Welcome back, like I never left, to the Triple Crown Champ. And today we are talking about Friday Night SmackDown. Actually, it was a hell of a show. I wasn't gonna, actually, it was a hell of a show. I wasn't gonna, actually, it was a hell of a show. I wasn't gonna do a record. Actually, it's a hell of a show. I wasn't gonna do a review of this, but it actually banged. So let's get into it. So, Friday Night SmackDown, we start the show with the appearance of Drew McIntyre. Y'all know I love some Drew McIntyre. So, Drew McIntyre came to the ring. So, Drew McIntyre being attacked by Cody at the very beginning of the show during his entrance. It was kind of funny. I quite liked it, actually. And it kind of set the tone for exactly what kind of show we were going to be watching. Well, Cody got on the mic and absolutely killer promo. I'm telling you, absolutely killer promo. More and more, I keep seeing why Cody Rhodes is QB1 because that was a QB1 worthy promo. Okay, next up, we get a match with Kiana James and Julia versus Rio. Now, as I said, I'm a little bit hit and miss with Rio. I don't really like the idea of them holding the title. It's a little bit. Is it the Timeless Love Bombs? Yeah, the Timeless Love Bomb, Tony Storm and Mina Shirakawa. I think they stink of that a little bit too much, as I've said. But I love to see Kiana James getting more time, especially after her performance in the Royal Rumble. I didn't know she had it like that, and every match she keeps showing me something more. Yeah, so Kiana James getting more time. Love to see that. Love to see that. EO had a little bit of a botch. It's all right. Suicide dive, but you got to be careful with the suicide dive. We all remember Lita. Next up, we get Carmelo Hayes. And for those who didn't believe in Carmelo Hayes, do you believe now? Look at Melo. Melo don't miss. You see what I'm saying to you? He seems like he's just a average mid card performer, but I'm telling you, the boy's got skills and he can go the entire way. It seems like very basic moves, but they're not very basic moves. When you execute them as well as Melo executes them, I watched his whole run in NXT. I didn't like him in NXT because I've said this before on this channel that I don't really like generic hip hop characters in the WWE. Maybe that's because I'm a big fan of hip hop and it just doesn't resonate. It just looks like a gimmick. It never looks real. Unless, of course, you're OTM. So, next we move on to a elimination match. Next, we move on to an elimination chamber. Next, we move on to an elimination chamber qualifying match with Chelsea Green. Lash Legends in there and Tiffany Stratton's in there. So we know who's going to win that match. But we can but hope that Chelsea Green is going to get the run she really deserves. Something that I noticed kicked off on the internet recently about Michael Hayes and what he said about Chelsea Green and where she is in the card, and the fact that we're never really going to see Chelsea Green move any higher than that. That is extremely disappointing because, as I said before in my last video, I believe Chelsea Green has the ability to be an ultimate opportunist wrestler, kind of like Edge was. You know what I mean? I believe Chelsea has that in her locker, as well as performing all that comedy and general Chelseaness that we love. So yeah, we know who's going to win that match. We know who did win that match. It is what it is. Tiffy's always going to get she was always going to get the elimination chamber spot. She's always going to get that push. Generally, what can be said about that? So, Kit Wilson. Yes, sir. I like Kit Wilson. He's a great performer. He's clearly one of those performers on the roster that can do just about anything. he can make people look good. And the second he came out flexing his muscle and talking about toxic, 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 you knew Oba was coming for his ass. So, and as much as I love to see an Englishman in wrestling, Oba is just a hell of a draw. Big. I don't know what them men are eating in Nigeria to make them look like that, but good Lord God. So yeah, Oba all the way. And I've been thinking about this for a while actually. WWE acquired Omos, the Nigerian giant. You put Omos with Apollo Creed. Omos, Apollo Creed, you get you some Obafemi in there, make yourself a stable. Make yourself a stable. There's quite a few of these guys that you can make a stable out of. That's the Nigerian collective. We all remember the nation, right? The nation of domination. Yeah? Okay. Something like that. Something like that. Now, as I said before, Drew McIntyre at the very start of the show. Now, I very much like what the writers did with this show because I had to give them a clap. I had to give them a maybe a little golf clap because they were absolutely excellent. The show was well written. The show was well put together. Drew McIntyre coming to the ring for the second time, and what do you know? This time he's attacked by Jacob Fatu, who can't even get a word out. Jacob Fatu attacks him. Love the way they did that. Love the way they did that. I almost wish he would come out for a third time and there would be a third person to attack him that he's somehow really upset. Maybe Sammy could have came out and gave him a louver, but you know, Sammy lost in the week before, so yeah, it's highly unlikely it was going to be that. But excellent, the fact that he came out the first time, got attacked, he got thrown out of the building, came out the second time, got attacked again. It's just that was beautiful writing. It was well put together, it was well shot. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Tama Tonga versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Now, you kind of knew where this was going. It wouldn't surprise me if the next wrestler that Gunter. The next wrestler that Gunter retires would be Shinsuke Nakamura. That would make sense to me. I wouldn't like it. But I think that seems to be the way that the WWE are going. They're holding on to Shinsuke for the name in Japan only. I recently actually saw a documentary about the Rainmaker. His name eludes me right now, and I can't believe it does. That's embarrassing. Once again, this happens generally in our videos, and I'll remember it a little bit later. But the Rainmaker and WWE trying to acquire him from New Japan, and obviously AEW were the ones that got him. Now, the fact of the matter is, those are probably the biggest two male Japanese wrestlers at the moment. The West kind of wants these wrestlers to transition into their companies so that they have the audience of Japan watching them and have some kind of stake within this, within the product that they're watching. For that reason, Shinsuke seems to be staying with the WWE despite the fact that they don't seem to be using him all that much. The Rainmaker himself has said that that's the wrestler he wants to compete with, not necessarily in a match, although I think he wants to do that as well. But the legacy and the power of that foreign Japanese wrestler in the US. And the WWE weren't able to acquire him because they tried to just as much as AEW did, but he decided to go to AEW. So for that reason alone, I think is why the WWE are keeping hold of Shinsuke Nakamura. I think they wanted to let him go a little while ago. Everything looked like that. They've gone back to his old entrance. They've gone back to a lot of things to kind of capture the beauty and the amazingness of Shinsuke Nakamura of a certain time. But then he's not winning any matches off the strength of that. So it doesn't really make it sense. It's not a resurgence of any kind. So yeah, we move on to the Judgment Day. We move on to the Judgment Day segment, and I do love me some Judgment Day. Mainly, I love me some Liv. I like some Raquel, and yeah, I mean, I love me some Finn. I do love me some Dom Dom, and I quite like Jordan Devlin. So I mean, get well soon. Wish to see him back on the roster. Um, as far as Roxanne Perez, she's growing on me. She's growing on me. But I must say, the Judgment Day is the Mean Girls. It actually kind of works. I like it. I don't like Mean Girls, but the Judgment Day, the girls as the Mean Girls, Liv as Regina George. I really quite like that. She does a great job. She does a great job. You know, we're barreling towards something great. Um, as far as whatever that storyline that entails Liv Morgan is, because it's Liv Morgan. She's gonna give you gold. So okay, so I also like the building between Liv and Raquel. Feel like something's gonna happen. I'm not quite sure if it's time or if that's what the WWE are thinking, and if it's possible that they're gonna turn Liv into a baby face. I think she's excellent as a heel, to be honest. She's so good as a heel. I remember when Rhea was a heel versus Liv being a heel. Rhea was hateable as a heel, I think, for me. I really didn't like her. However, I find Liv to just be lovable as a heel. Lovable as a heel. It's one of those crazy dynamics, but it is. So that takes us to the men's qualifier to end out the show, the main event. Randy Orton versus Solo Sikoa versus Aleister Black. Oh, y'all know how I feel about Aleister Black already. I think Aleister Black should be going the whole way, but once again, we knew how this was going to turn out. We knew that Randy Orton was going to win. It's obvious. That's always the way it's set up. He's always going to. So, I mean, some of this kind of makes it stale nowadays because you just know who's going to win. You can look at match, and just know exactly who's going to win. There's no point. No one else is really getting a push. There's no new people breaking through in a heavyweight division. I will give AEW some credit for that at the moment. They're doing that a little bit better because there are some shocks and there's some twists and turns on who's holding the belts and when they're holding the belts. So, unless of course you're Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, whatever she wants to call herself this week. But other than that, yeah, with the WWE, we know exactly who's going to pick up what belt when, who's going to lose what. It's a little bit too predictable at the moment, despite some great storylines being in there. Sometimes predictable is good. We know where we're going. We just need to see the direction you take. But alas, that is not what this is. I don't think so anyway. So, and that was, and that was, and that was Friday Night SmackDown. Now, of course, something new I'm adding into my videos, something I think we'll all enjoy, is Joke of the Day. Here goes. If you like the content, hit like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. It lets you know when I'm uploading next. And until then, I have been the Triple Crown Champ. I'll see you next time.